Chapter 1. Smile, nature, not normal. About 1200 years had passed since the end of the War of Nalville. In the magical world of Gardoon existed the bustling town of Mandruk, where smog choked the skyline and trash littered the streets and water bodies. Mandruk and its neighbouring town, Kudum, had an invisible wall around them that protected the towns and made them invisible to the rest of Gardoon. Unaware of the impending dangerous events for his town, Ethan was sleeping on his bed. Ethan was an ordinary college student living a normal life in Mandruk, but there was one extraordinary thing about his life that consumed his thoughts day and night. Her name was Lily, a girl in his class, whose every glance and every word were etched in his heart like a secret he could not wait to share. For months Ethan had admired Lily from afar, enchanted by her radiant smile, her graceful stride, and the way her laughter seemed to brighten even the gloomiest of days. But Ethan was a shy and introverted young man, and the mere thought of speaking to her sent waves of nervousness through his veins. Every morning as he walked to his college, his heart raced with anticipation. He tried to devise the perfect plan to approach Lily, to say something clever or funny that would make her notice him. He stayed up late at night, brainstorming ideas, crafting witty remarks, and even rehearsing his lines in front of the mirror. Yet when he saw her in the hallways or during class, his voice would falter and his courage would wane. As he continued this internal struggle, something else began to occupy his thoughts. On his daily walk to college, he could not help but notice the extent of environmental degradation that had engulfed the city. Plastic bags danced like spectral apparitions in the wind, smog hung in the air like a veil of despair, and the once pristine river, Nivara, that flowed through the city had transformed into a sludge-filled wasteland. It was as if nature itself was mourning the town's demise. One fateful day in his classroom, Lily's words struck him like a bolt of lightning. She said that she was organising community clean-up events, starting recycling initiatives, and planting trees to replace the gloomy concrete jungle with pockets of greenery. Ethan knew it was his ticket for both his wishes to come true. With the courage that he was unaware of, he stood up and volunteered to help Lily. His heart melted and his mind jumped as he saw Lily look at him and smile. The cuteness in the curves made by her lips and cheeks, the one thing he had been yearning for the most, the opportunity to see her smile up close, had at last become a reality. Not only did his bravery bring a smile to Lily's face, but it also drew the attention of some of his classmates. Unconcerned about the stares, he maintained his focus on what truly mattered to him. That evening, when he was walking back home, he heard some voice calling his name from behind him. He saw some of his classmates had followed him. He was not surprised to see the same stares that he saw that morning. He could not help but notice that he was perfectly in a place where his cry for help would not be noticed. He knew the boys were there to warn him about getting close to Lily. Ethan stood without a word. He had observed Lily closely enough to know that her heart remained unclaimed by anyone. While he held confidence in his capability to outrun the boys, if need be, a seed of doubt lingered in the back of his mind. He spoke to himself, advising him not to do anything stupid. He did the math in his mind and did not see a winning chance in a fight. As he was devising a perfect response, he heard a honk. The windows rolled down from a black sedan and a woman spoke. "Do any of you boys know the way to Mr. Solman's house?" Ethan looked at the woman and said, "I know, and I can help you reach faster if you can give me a ride." The woman said, "Sure, young man, hop in." Ethan walked past the boys staring at him to get inside the car. The woman realized that there had been an argument among the boys, and Ethan had used the opportunity to escape from the situation by getting in her car. She stepped on the accelerator and followed the directions communicated by Ethan. The woman asked, "May I know your name, young man?" Ethan introduced himself and said that Mr. Solman's house was just on the corner of the street on which they were driving. Thanking him for guiding her, the woman then asked about the location of his house, intending to drop him off. Ethan said, "Earlier, while introducing myself, I might have missed mentioning my last name. My full name is Ethan Solman." The woman looked at Ethan in surprise and asked, "Are you Thomas Solman and Emma Solman's son?" Ethan nodded his head. The woman introduced herself as Ella Watson. She was enthusiastic to uncover that piece of information about Ethan. She said that she was a very good friend of his parents and that she had last seen him when he was very young. She said that she had a misunderstanding related to work with his parents, and thus they hadn't met for several years. Everything that Ella said after introducing herself faded away as Ethan was fixated on Ella's second name. Ethan interrupted Ella's conversation as Ella stopped in front of his house. Ethan asked, "Are you by any chance related to Lily Watson?" Ella said, "Yeah, Lily is my daughter. How do you know Lily?" Ethan said, "Lily and I go to the same college. We're classmates." With an appreciative smile directed at Ella, he thanked her as she and Lily both graciously shared the same smile and eyes. Ella felt a tinge of warmth in her heart on hearing Ethan's words. She said, "I hope your parents welcome me with the same warmth." She turned towards his house and tears dropped from one of her eyes as she remembered the things from the past. She quickly wiped her tears as she did not want Ethan to see her crying. Ethan ran to the door and pressed the doorbell. He turned back to see Ella hesitant to walk towards the door. The door opened and Emma saw Ella. Ethan, without noticing the door being open, called out for Ella, welcoming her into his house. He turned to his mother, said that they had a guest, and ran upstairs to his room. Ella walked towards the door and saw Emma staring at her and asked, "Hi, Emma. How are you?" Emma said, "For the allegations you made against us and the words that you spoke to us in the past, I would not have let you inside my house, but somehow you were accompanied by my son, and he invited you in. So you are welcome this time. But if you are here to hurt us more, then please return. We cannot bear any more false claims." Ella looked into Emma's eyes and said, "Believe me, I am not here to hurt anyone." Ethan ran to his room, changed his clothes, and came down to the kitchen as he wanted something to eat. He saw his mother hugging Ella. He felt happy as they got along because the issue between his parents and Lily's parents would have been a showstopper for his dream to win Lily's heart. He did not want to disturb their talk, as it seemed like it was important, so he proceeded to the kitchen and got some bread and peanut butter. Having finished his snack, he was on his way back to his room when he saw Ella's smile as she was leaving their house. The glimpse of her smile served as a catalyst, reigniting the memory of Lily's enchanting smile from that morning, now etched deeply in his mind. Strangely, as he mentally replayed the morning incident, the happiness he felt seemed to intensify, surpassing even the joy of the actual moment. He went to his room and began thinking about the things he could do to get Lily's attention. He spent the evening completely dedicated to achieving his goal in life. He got many ideas as he put his mind to them. The small distractions around were nothing compared to his aim, so they became weak and vanished. He wrote down the initial draft of a perfect plan to save the environment and spend more time with Lily. He felt proud of himself. He congratulated himself for coming up with such an idea. Full of happiness, he went down for his dinner. He found his parents were not as happy as they used to be. He asked them if everything was all right. His mother said that there was nothing to worry about and that their problem need not affect him. Thomas asked Ethan about his day and how he met Ella. Ethan began saying that he had one of the best days of his life. He shared that his bicycle's chain had unexpectedly broken, compelling him to leave it for repairs at a service centre, conveniently positioned on his way to college. In the evening he went back to the service centre, but they said that the owner of the place had left the town due to a personal emergency, so he could not get his bicycle back. He mentioned that as he was heading home he encountered Ella seeking assistance along the way to his house. Thomas asked, "I thought you said you had the best day of your life." Ethan explained, "Even though I faced some challenges, making someone smile in college made it the best day for me. That single smile made me forget all the troubles I had." Emma looked at Thomas and asked, "Ella had been a frequent visitor to our house before our argument in the past. She must be aware of the location of our house, so why did she ask for Ethan's help?" Thomas said, yeah, it did not cross my mind. But maybe it is because of the way this part of the town has changed. I noted that she mentioned that she had not been to this part of the town lately. That could be the reason. Moreover, almost all the houses in our street are of the same design. In the first few weeks when we moved to this house, even I found it difficult to differentiate our house. Emma nodded her head, agreeing with Thomas. She looked at Thomas and said, I am worried. Ethan wanted to know if his mother was fine with Ella's sudden appearance in their lives. He did not want anything to go wrong between his parents and Lily's parents. He asked, anything that I need to be worried about? Emma said, not now, everything will pass. I hope the worry in my mind also passes. After dinner, Ethan went up to his room and saw his plan written in his notebook. But it did not excite him as it did earlier. He closed the notebook and sat down to think. He wondered why his emotions were different now. He thought about how he was feeling before going to dinner and after he came back. He figured the sadness he saw in his parents could be the reason for his emotional shift. Then he focused his thoughts on the time when he came up with that plan. He felt like he was not himself at the time of forming the plan. He felt like he was thinking and acting like someone superior, someone with a cause and dedication towards an aim. He thought about what he wanted to achieve and read the plan in his notebook. Now he felt happy. He felt the pride that he felt before dinner. Sitting in his room, he realized the power of the human mind and how it is affected by emotions. Yet a strong doubt lingered in the back of his mind. He doubted his ability to accomplish the things he planned to do. When it was time for bed, he turned off the lights and lay down on his bed. His body was not too tired, as he had not been doing much physical activity and had not been doing his workouts for a couple of weeks. So he did not immediately go to sleep as soon as he closed his eyes. He began thinking about the events that took place that day, about the incidents being perfectly executed. He thought about the time and place where his cycle's chain broke. It happened right in the middle of the bridge that connected the other side of the town over the plastic-filled Filth River. That was the place where he felt bad about the environment, as he had seen a fish that was caught in a plastic bag and was struggling to breathe. The fish reminded him about his sister, who had drowned in that river when she was young. He could not do anything to help the fish, except watch it suffocate and die. But instead of feeling bad for that fish, he wanted to think of a way to prevent other fish from dying that way. On his walk to his college, he was constantly thinking about the river. He wanted to do something to make it better. Due to this thought in his mind, he immediately showed his support for Lily's initiative and got a beautiful gift from nature in the form of her smile. Lily's smile was the most beautiful expression he had seen on Lily's face. He fell asleep in happiness and had a dream about Lily. In his dream, he was standing in the middle of a garden, filled with flower blossoms. He felt like he could hear someone cry. He turned around but could see no one. He was alone in the garden. He could not find anyone. He began walking around and saw a woman sitting on the ground, weeping. He walked towards her and began to speak. Suddenly he was stunned to feel someone touching his shoulders from behind him. He turned around quickly and saw Lily. She was wearing a red dress, looking at him and smiling. He could see love in her eyes. They both locked their eyes and Lily moved toward him to kiss him. Ethan, who had not kissed a girl before in his life, was unsure about how to proceed at that moment. He saw Lily leaning towards him with her eyes closed. He saw her lips and forgot about his fear and the weeping girl. He closed his eyes to completely enjoy his kiss. Before closing his eyes, he placed his hands softly on the sides of her face to approximately know the position of her lips. He waited for her soft lips to touch his lips, but he was shocked as the kiss landed on his forehead. He opened his eyes to see Lily kiss his forehead. He was in a different garden now. He was sitting on the ground and Lily was sitting beside him. Her smile was unbeatable. The breeze and the sun made it better. He was overwhelmed with love and hugged her, resting his face on her shoulder. He could feel the warmth. He was happy until he felt something weird. He felt the presence of something bright. He lifted his head from Lily's shoulder and found himself in a different garden. The sun had almost set, and the night had started spreading its wings. He was not sitting on the ground but standing, and Lily was standing beside him, to his left, holding his hands tight, looking at something curious. The brightness of the thing that she was looking at was shining in her eyes. Lily looked at him and then back at the bright light. Ethan turned to look at the light, but he could not see anything as the light was too bright for human eyes. He could not comprehend the thing that he was looking at. He had never seen something like that. The light's intensity and brightness increased with every second. At some point, the light's intensity was so high that it made both of them close their eyes. He maintained a firm grip on Lily's hand, refusing to let go, and she reciprocated with an equally strong grasp. The light was so bright that he had to use his other hand to cover his eyes. He tried looking at the light, hoping to figure out what was causing it. He felt some movement. It felt like the source of the light was dancing. He felt sorrow and anger at the same time in the movement of the light. Somehow he knew that the slow movement of the light represented sorrow, and the intensity of the light represented rage. He felt that someone or something that was producing the light was not happy about something. Suddenly he felt someone touching his right hand, just above his elbow. He turned to his right and saw a girl. She was struggling to look at the light and was closing her eyes with her hands. As her hands were not efficient enough to block the light, she buried her face into Ethan's arm to protect her eyes from the light. Ethan could not figure out who the girl was, as he could not see her face properly. But he did not want to disturb her by attempting to look at her face. The light's brightness kept increasing. Ethan could feel the heat increasing. It reached a point where he could not bear the heat. He was struggling a lot, and then suddenly the light got dimmer. He tried looking at the light to figure out the source. The light began to take form. He felt a sense of relaxation. He felt like the source of the light had figured out a solution for its sorrow. As an effect, its movement became faster and its anger reduced, in turn reducing its light's intensity. He was fixated on the light, but could not figure out what it was. He saw a beam of orangish-yellow light shoot into the sky. He was disturbed as he felt like he heard someone laughing from behind him. It was a woman's voice. He immediately turned around, and as he did, he woke up from his dream the next morning. Relief washed over him as he realized it was just a dream, freeing him from the need to figure out the mystery of the light. It was all in his imagination. He felt a bit disappointed because he had hoped that the parts about Lily were real. He sat on his bed and looked at his alarm clock. The clock hands were just about to hit 6. He waited a couple of minutes for the alarm to go off before getting up from his bed. He turned the alarm off as soon as it began ringing, and with a smile on his face he went to brush his teeth. While bathing, he felt an unusual silence. He could not hear anything except the sound of the water falling on the floor. It caught his attention, especially because he could not hear any birds chirping. He walked to the living hall downstairs and saw his father sitting on the couch with his hands raised. Initially he thought that his father was stretching a bit, but even after a while he did not drop his hands below. It started to get weirder, so he asked his father about his hands being raised, but his father did not respond to him. He seemed too fixated on his breathing, so he did not ask him many questions and thought it was a prank. He headed to the kitchen to see what his mother was preparing for breakfast. He saw his mother preparing breakfast with her left hand, holding the vessel's handle, and the right hand holding onto a spoon to stir and cook the vegetables in the vessel. He began talking to his mother, to know if she was feeling all right, as he remembered his mother being sad the previous night. His mother did not respond, but instead turned her gaze toward him and smiled. Ethan's thoughts were conquered by hunger, as his stomach started growling. He asked her how long would it take for the breakfast to be ready. On hearing that, his mother picked up a fruit, washed it, and handed it to him. He took the fruit from his mother's right hand. He noticed that her left hand was raised in the air. As soon as he got the fruit from his mother's right hand, she raised her right hand as well. Ethan laughed and asked, "What kind of a prank is this?" His mother did not talk. She continued to cook. Ethan laughed and asked, "What is the purpose of this prank?" His mother still did not talk back, so he left saying, "Let's see for how long you both can manage to keep your hands up and not talk." On his way to the dining table, he saw his father with his hands raised and threw the fruit towards him, asking him to catch it. Surprisingly, his father caught the fruit with his right hand and handed it back to Ethan. His left hand was raised the whole time. Ethan laughed and said, "This year's award for the best prankster parents goes to Mr. and Mrs. Solomon." Ethan clapped his hands and cheered. Surprisingly, his parents did not break from their act. He became curious about their actions. For a moment he wondered if it indeed was a prank. Ethan was amazed at his father's reflexes as he sat at the dining table to eat the fruit. After eating, he went to the living room and watched his father's dedication towards a prank. He maintained silence and was waiting for his father to break his act. Deciding to test his father's dedication, he thought if he left the house and entered quietly without making any noise, he could fool his father and catch him red-handed. So he informed his parents that he was leaving the house to get some fresh air and stepped out. He left the door slightly open for him to sneak inside, as the main door of his house would make a noise that could collapse his plan. He thought of waiting only for 5 seconds before entering inside. The 5 seconds were enough for him to be terrified. The 5 seconds made him realize that his parents were not involved in a prank. The 5 seconds caused a lot of confusion in his mind. The 5 seconds made his heart pump faster in fear. He did not understand what was happening to his parents as he saw people walking on the street, carrying on with their normal activities with their hands raised. He stepped inside the house to the living room. His mother came out of the kitchen and straight to the dining table and began arranging their breakfast. Ethan noticed that when his mother had something in her hand, she was walking normally, but while walking back empty-handed, she walked with her hands raised. He could not possibly understand why his parents and his neighbors were raising their hands when they did not use their hands for any purpose. As soon as his mother arranged the breakfast on the dining table, his father walked towards Ethan with his hands raised. He used his right hand to tap on Ethan's shoulder and asked him to join him for breakfast.